voice17104.com. This is Zanetta Wingfield, and you're listening to The Voice 17104.com. The Voice 17104.com. Welcome to Did You Know? Podcast, your host, Richard Utley, dedicated to the African American viewers. The program is aimed to celebrate African American culture and deal with the real and relevant topics that impact the everyday lives of the African American community through frank and insightful dialogue with local and national influencers. Every day, there's another horrible, discouraging news story, directly or indirectly, impacting African Americans. But we need to look at the shining stars in the galaxy of Black America. It is time to tell our story.
Welcome to another Did You Know? Oh, we're going to have an exciting program today. I think I have a guest on that I think that you will enjoy. Just going to talk about their vision, their dreams, and how they've gotten to where they've gotten to this far. But before we get there, let me talk about a couple other things. As I will always open up with, we have to do what we need to do in our community for ourselves. We can't wait on anybody to come in the community to do things for us. And I think we have to take responsibility, and I will continue to say that we have to take responsibility. We have to take responsibility in terms of making sure that our community is safe. We have to take responsibility to make sure that our young people get a good education. And so I'm going to keep saying that. And why do I keep saying that? Because I think sometimes we keep thinking that somebody else is going to come in and do that for us. And I have to tell you, that's just not going to happen. That's the first thing. The other thing I want to talk about, and I've said this before, we got to be more kinder and gentler in our community. We have to encourage young people. We have to tell them that they are somebody. We have to tell them that we believe in them. And we also have to speak to the senior citizens. One of the things that we need to do is that we need to go back and make sure that our community is very connected. A lot of people think our community is disconnected, but it's not disconnected. It is connected. So that's the most important message that I'm going to give you today. And of course, as you also know, that I believe in history. And so I'm going to be a history every time we have a program. I'm going to give you some names. I'm not going to tell you who, what, and where, but I want you to do the research. Because if we don't tell our own history of who people are, then how are we going to know who they are? And how are young people going to know who they are? You know, we keep waiting on everybody to tell our story, and I think we have to tell our own story. So today I'm going to give you some names, and I want you to look them up and figure out who they are and tell young people who they are. Some of them you will know. Jesse Owens. Do your research. Find out who Jesse Owens was. Reginald Lewis. Who is Reginald Lewis? Well, I can tell you this here. Think about someone that made a lot of money. That's all I'm going to tell you. He was from Baltimore. I will tell you that. He's from Maryland. I'll tell you that much. The other person that I'm going to bring up is that Thaddeus Stevens. Now, who is Thaddeus Stevens? I want you to look up who Thaddeus Stevens is, but I'll even do a little better than that. There's a Thaddeus Stevens School in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. But find out about Thaddeus Stevens. I want you also to find out who Nat Turner is. Because a lot of you don't know who Nat Turner is. And I think the importance of why I want you to see who Nat Turner is, because sometimes you get confused in history. And I hear it sometimes, people say, oh, well, you know, during slavery, nobody did this and nobody did that. And you will find that there were people that were doing stuff way, way before then. The other thing I want you to keep in mind, I was reading something and it applied to athletes, but I thought it applied to a lot of people. It says, athletes, be mindful how you treat people, because sports will end someday. Life won't. It still goes on. Life will still go on. So the same way you treat people on your way will be the same way you get treated on the way down. And I just thought that was very important, because I think that sometimes that we need to understand, we need to treat people like we want to be treated, because I think that's very important. You know, we always use this word we throw around, disrespected. Well, sometimes you cause disrespect. So I'm going to just say to you that I just think that what's important is that we treat everybody like we want to be treated. And before I bring on my guests, don't forget, elections coming up. We got to take care of those who take care of us. We got to reward them. And those that don't do the things that's vested interest in us, then we should vote them out. You got it? Take care of those who take care of us. And those that don't take care of us, then we need to punish them. But before I bring my guests on, I want to put something in perspective. I was reading something, and it said internationally, U.S. ranks 125th for literacy. 125th in the whole globe. 54% of Americans between the ages of 16 and 74 read below a 6th grade level. Think about that. A 6th grade level. As I told you, this is called Did You Know? And the concept of Did You Know is to make you think and make you go back and make you do your own research. Before I bring my guests on, you know, I read this before, and I'm going to read it again because I think it's very appropriate on who I'm bringing on. The outside world told Black kids when I was growing up that we weren't worth anything. But our parents said it wasn't so. And our churches and our school teachers said it wasn't so. They believed in us, and we therefore believe in ourselves. And Marion Wright Ellerman said that. And so I'm going to start that off today because I have a guest on, a young lady that I have known. And her name is Juanita Palmer. And she's the CEO of Sunny Days Child Development Center, which was started in 2017 by her. So welcome.
Thank you.
Well, we're going to start off because I said I touched this whole conversation based on education. And I know that your whole thing is to develop young minds, because I did some research on you and what you believe in. You know, you believe that, you know, kids, and I believe what you say, Julian believes there is no such thing as daycare kids, which means that tells me that you're trying to prime them for short term and long range. So could you please tell us who you are? And then after you tell us who you are, then I'm gonna start asking you, what made you decide that you wanted to develop young minds?
Okay, so my name is Juanita Palmer. For those that don't know me, I own and operate Sunny Days Child Development Center. We have 3 locations currently in the greater Harrisburg area, 2 in Pembroke and 1 on Girard Street in the city of Harrisburg. So what made me want to go into childcare was just I had a love for children, had and still have. I actually feel like it is my calling. I knew from an early age that I wanted to work with children. My goal was to always become a teacher, but some things happened and that didn't pan out, but I still ended up in the field of education through childcare. So that brings me to my current spot.
Okay, let me ask you, where'd you grow up at? Tell us a little bit about you. And I think once we know a little bit about you, it'll explain why you say that you have the passion of what you want to do.
So a little bit about myself. I am a mother of 4. I have a 19-year-old, 17, 13, and an awesome 4-year-old. I'm a sister. I am a daughter. I try to be a good friend. Yeah, I am a survivor.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm a lot of things.
You're a lot of things,
Yeah,
but you say that you feel that the daycare business, and you use this word, was your passion.
yeah.
Explain to me and my audience what made you feel that that was the passion that you wanted to go.
Okay, so I would say that childcare or children became important to me because growing up, I was actually a victim of childhood molestation. And so, how that affected me as a young person was feeling as though I didn't have a voice. When I became older, I realized the importance of making sure that children felt heard, that they felt seen, and that they were understood. And also, like the most important thing is that they were safe. So it made me want to basically be like that conduit that, like any child that was in my presence, I made sure that they were going to feel safe. So that's what kind of led me to the pursuit of education, just wanting to be close to children so that they could have like the outlet if they were going through something. Like I wanted them to feel like they were going to be safe around me or safe to know that they could, talk to someone. So that's actually like what led me to want to be in that field. And so it just kind of grew from there, just my passion for children.
I mean, that the reason I asked you that question because I wanted to build on the foundation of that. Because what you said is very important. And that's why I have the program so people can come on and tell their stories and tell their journey. Because there's people probably out there that's listening that's just like you. And we want to give them hope. We want to give them encouragement. And one of the things that I decided that I was going to start to do is bring up things that we don't really talk about.
Right.
We don't talk about mental health. We don't talk about things that we don't want to talk about, whether it's child abuse or whatever.
Right.
And we need to talk about those things because they're very important things. And then some of the stories that you know and some of the things that happen creates a person like you to do good work. Um, you talk about, and I've read your stuff. You say at Sunny Days you provide an environment of love, care, and educational development for children. Now, what do you mean by that? That's a broad statement. So could you please tell my audience what you mean by that? And we can go from environmental love, care, and educational, but now we know why the foundation is there.
Right. So like the first and the basis of all things is safety. So we want to provide an atmosphere where children feel comfortable in their skin, where they feel safe. When you feel safe, you're free to learn. And so what we do is we provide a structure where children are able to learn independently, just in a safe environment. And for a lot of that goes through like learning through play, and also just do a lot of structured activities as well.
Well, I mean, I think that's important. Could you please tell my audience what's the difference in, as you use, child development to develop and not just be a place that people just warehouse young children?
Okay. Well, I mean, I cannot speak to like warehouses, but I can speak to what we try to do. And that is, I mean, basically anyone that works in childcare, we have regulations that we follow. And in those regulations, we are supposed to follow developmentally appropriate instruction. We're supposed to provide that for children. So that means that we provide activities, we provide structure where they can learn based on their age, where they're at, or their ability, because some children progress and they move a little bit slower than other children. So like we are to meet them where they're at.
Um, Let me ask you this, because you have now, what is the range of your development center? It's from what age and what group?
Okay, so right now we are accepting, well, we have children ages, we start at 6 weeks old, and our oldest is 12 years old. So 6 weeks to 12 years old.
And you would say you realize the importance of the development from the very beginning.
Absolutely.
And the reason I brought that up is because when I use the word warehouse. What I meant was, you make sure that kids are going to have some kind of development, opposed to just having a group of kids in a room and just babysitting them.
Right.
Because sometimes people get the wrong impression of what daycare development is. And what you're saying is, you believe in developing young people, opposed to just put me in a corner and give me some snacks and when I, and I think that's very important, because one of the things that I realize now is that early childhood development intellectually is very important.
Mm-hmm.
And I hear so often people say, oh, they got the kindergarten, they got the first grade, they got the sixth grade. I mean, even to the point what I just brought up a few minutes ago, when I said that 54% of Americans, it's between 16 and 74, read below the sixth grade level.
Mm-hmm.
And people probably said, I can't believe that, not realizing the levels, because I hear it all the time. I hear stories where people say, oh, he's in the ninth grade, or she's in the 10th grade, or she's in the 11th grade, but she's only reading at a fourth or fifth grade level. But I also, and you can tell me if I'm right or wrong, but if you start where you get them at, you start to get them to develop in their mind to where they're going to go and what they're going to do. Is that correct?
Right. So you want to expose children as early as you can to just different activities that are going to stimulate them. So when we work in childcare, like we know like the simplest things, like even from dealing with infants up to preschoolers, toddlers, school agers, there's like different activities that are going to stimulate different age groups. So for instance, like you'd be surprised that like little infants, the things that will like something as simple as peekaboo is working with them developmentally. And a lot of times, like if you have children in a setting where someone doesn't know like the importance of speaking to children at a young age, you'll find that children are developing a little slower with their speech. So just talking to them, having that back and forth dialogue, even at an early age, is important.
I think that what you're saying is important. And we all have had some experiences in life as children, good, bad, and indifferent. Mm-hmm. And would you say that from that early age stage, it has a tremendous impact on them in terms of their development and to where they're going to be short-term and long-term?
I would say yes, because I'm not sure exactly what this study was, but there is definitely information out there that shows that children that are withheld from like affection, from dialogue, that they develop at a different rate. So early stages, early learning is essential.
That's why it's important, audience, that when you hear people tell young people, you're not going to be this, you're not going to be that, it stigmatizes them. And sometimes that's very important. Because what happens is, that's why I'm saying to you, audience, that you have to tell young people. You got to encourage them. You got to say, hey, how you doing? You got to tell them they can be anything that they want to be, as long as they get the necessary tools to do it. You know, the big talk right now is about the University of Colorado's football team, and Deion Sanders basically saying, I believe in my kids. Mm-hmm. I told them that I believed in them, and now they believe in themselves. But some of them needed something so that they could believe in themselves, because they had heard so much negativeness. And then at the same time, that's why it's important when we say things to kids, you think they don't hear it, or you think they don't understand it, and it ends up being something that they use to not necessarily feel positive. And that's why we have to be positive. We have to be positive to young people, but we need to be positive to all our people. Mm-hmm. And so that's why I think that it's important that we be kinder and gentler in our community. I see that you say you believe we must be gentle with kids and their feelings. That is your philosophy. How'd you come up with that?
I mean, basically what you just said, words are important. I know that when we're young, we're taught that sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. But that's not true. Words do hurt, and they stick. So it is important that we speak life into our children at an early age. And I am very careful about what I say regarding like my own children, and there are things I would never say about anyone else's children. Even like as simple as, even I know like people say it like in a joking form, like, oh, they're so crazy, or they're, like this, even though like it might be like a joke, it's still something that we don't know like how that will impact them later on. And so like I'm intentional about how I speak to my children, to all children, and the things that I speak over them, because I do believe that the word of God says that life and death is in the power of the tongue, and that it is essential. Like we have to use our tongue to edify and speak blessings over our children, and not curses, and not speak down on them.
Okay, I'm gonna flip the script a little bit. Okay, so now you own 3 daycares.
Okay.
So I'm assuming you have a vision down the road to take your philosophy and the platform, the principle of your daycare, and you're going to take it to another level. Am I right or wrong? If you have the philosophy that you have and you believe in what you have, then don't you think you want to take what you have and market it out there so we in the community, we can get the value of your knowledge and your wisdom and your vision?
So I find that it is very important to move with intention. And so, with that being said, like, I always want to be led by God in whatever I do. So I'm not necessarily in a rush to like expand like all over the place, but to be focused on the quality of care that we provide. And right now, like I feel like I'm on task. I have really, really great staff that help me, that came along and saw my vision, that support me in that task, because there's no way that I could do it alone. And so, I mean, eventually, sure, like as we grow and as people, more people come along and they want to see, believe in the vision and say, hey, we can do this, we can help children in our community and provide excellent quality care. They don't have to go off to the big centers that are like corporate, big corporately sponsored centers and stuff. Like we can have great care, great quality care in our neighborhoods. Then, yes, we can expand that way. But right now we are just focused on like quality and just, I simply said, just doing right by our kids.
Well, I think that's very important. Let's talk about that. Okay, I asked you, were you going to franchise all over? And you said, whoop, hold up, hold up. I got 1, 2, 3. I want to make sure I got them right. Is that
Right.
basically what you said?
Yeah.
You're developing a blue plan, I'm assuming. You're developing a blue plan to make sure that you will be able to provide the quality of the first one, the second one, the third one, because you understand that you want to get that totally right, but at the same time, you realize that your vision, your dreams, and your hopes in terms of your development center is important overall
Right.
in the community. Because I'm a believer that we have to invest in our community. I believe that we got to look out for ourselves. And that means supporting you, that means encouraging you, and that means to help you be successful. Now, something that you said, and I'm just asking, you said you had a good staff.
Mhm.
And I'm assuming a good staff is very important. And why is a good staff very important?
I mean, in childcare, you cannot do it alone. Alone, we have ratios that we have to keep, and that is, enforced by the state of Pennsylvania. So, like, there's no I in team when it comes to childcare. So having the right staff is essential. Having or finding people that have the heart for children, like you have, that are patient, people that understand like the importance of what we're doing is essentially, it's essentially ministry work. Actually, is what I believe that it is.
Is that what how you see it? You see it as ministry work in terms of helping those in the community?
Yeah, because basically, like for me and my center, like I'm not just going to hire like anybody off the street just to say that I have a person in that classroom.
Mhm.
Like, most of the time, our staff come from referrals, or they might be like people that, might have been like former parents that we've like began to know over the years. And a lot of the times, like we can train them and say, because people think, oh, like you said, like, oh, this is daycare, I want to sit in a room and watch a kid. It's not like that. So, yeah, you have to really have the heart, you have to have the patience and the durability to work in this field.
Okay, so you're telling me hiring staff is very important.
Absolutely.
Okay, so I'm gonna play this two-prong.
Okay.
Let me ask you this here. How do you balance that with hiring staff and dealing with the establishment, the relationship with parents?
We have great parents. So, I mean, with anything, you're going to get a couple bad apples, but for the most part, like we have really great parents at our sites. And I feel like we work together as a community. And so, the parents are appreciative that they have somewhere safe where they can drop their kids off and they can come back after work and they know that they're good. And likewise, like we know and we understand that, without the parents, like, we don't have a position, like, so it's give and take. And yeah, it's a community.
So you're telling me that at your center, that the parents and the staff, you work hand in hand?
Yeah, you have to.
Okay, I'm
Yeah.
just asking. You have
Yeah,
to.
because
Okay.
if your baby needs wipes, like, we say, hey, such and such needs some wipes, they need some diapers, that we have to depend on the parents to bring them in.
Well, I think that's I do understand that, but I want my audience to
Okay.
see how you have to balance it.
Mhm.
I mean, we don't. I don't know much about the daycare center, but I'm learning. But as I'm learning and navigating, I'm asking the questions so that the people out there, for three reasons. One, we understand the importance that we have to develop child development centers. We know that. Two, we have to understand how we talk to and how we treat young people. Three, we have to also understand that, and I'm going to go back to it, parents have to have some responsibility too. Because the problem is, a lot of times, parents don't take responsibility. We have a lot of issues out there in the community. Let's lay it on the ground here. We got a lot of issues out there in the community because the parents, you don't do your job. You don't make sure your kids read and write. You don't make sure where they are and what they're doing. I know that, and you know that. So that's why it's important. And we always hear it now. Young people are having kids. We hear that all the time now. But that's not the point. The point is that we have to develop responsible young people. And apparently you took that job on. Yet you feel that was your calling to take that job on. So now we done talked about the hiring staff. We talked about the parenting, and you say it's a connection. But at the same time, you've given us all the nice, fluffy kinds of things. So how do you, I'm going to just throw some other things in there so you could tell the audience that some of the things that you have to go through. And the reason I do that is because I want the audience to understand it's a great idea to say you want to open up something, do something, sell something, but then there's a lot of work in it. So I want my audience to understand the sweat and the equity and all of that you put in to make those child centers being very, profitable and productive. We'll get to the profitability later on, because we all know if there ain't no profit, I don't know if you'd be open, but we'll get to that. Now, what do you see as some of the things, because you had to figure out where your locations were?
Mhm.
How did you? I just want my audience to see that you have a master plan. So you had to figure out where you thought you wanted to put them at, with something that you said. Marking your daycare centers, but or development centers. But one of the things you said, and I liked, you talked about our community. Our community, it's very important that we service our community. And that's why it's important that we need to quote unquote support you. So I'm just going to play devil's advocate a few minutes here. How do you come up with where you're going to put them at?
So honestly, my first location, which is my smallest location that has been in operation for 7 years now, that was not something that was strategic. That was just an opportunity that presented itself. So I was helping out someone that I knew that had a childcare center, and he basically was like, "Hey, there's a childcare space that's closing. Can you talk to the director and see if I can buy some equipment?" So I'm like, "Sure, I'll go." Because at the time I wasn't in the field; I was working for Head Start, and so I went over and I spoke to this lady who was, retiring. And as we're talking, we're talking about the kids, we're talking about the field. And she says, "Hey, you should, see if you can get this location. I think that you would do really well here." And I was like, "Okay, I'll try." At the time, I was going through a divorce, so I didn't have a lot of money. I kind of probably didn't have any money at the time, but I was working 3 jobs. So I talked to the owner, and he asked me for a business plan. He asked me for my financial statements and like my credit score. Going through a divorce, my credit was trash. I knew how to make a business plan because shout out to Miss Clandestine Dunson. I had went through her SBI program at Harrisburg High, and that was one of our curriculums to do a business plan. So I had that on lock. But what else was it? My financial statements. I didn't have those. So I interviewed with this owner, and I told him, like, I don't have these things, but this is what this is my background, and this is what I do have, because I was a former center director at a different center for about 10 years prior to that, like straight out of high school. So so I do the interview with him, and since I don't have the other things that he asked for, I just assumed that I'm out of the running, because he has, I think he says, like 10 other people that were interested in the space. So a couple months go by and I forget about it, and I say, "Hey, it must not be meant to be." And then he calls me out of the blue and he says, "Juanita," he said, "I have not rented out the location." He said, "I interviewed a lot of people." He said, "But I keep coming back to you, and I think that the space is supposed to be for you." And I'm like, okay, I feel like at this point, like maybe it is supposed to be for me. So I save up my first month rent and security deposit for the building. And the rest is history. So it wasn't strategic. It was more so opportunity that I felt like, God had set aside just for me. And it happened out of me, like really trying to help someone else out. My second location, that was more strategic. I had been at the first location for a couple of years and kind of had outgrown it. I had really good staff that, we were doing the first and second shift there. And we couldn't accept any more kids. So I was like, okay, I need to start looking for a new space. So I, was calling around. I was trying to find, a location that I felt like would service like uptown and the hill, like that would kind of be centrally located. And I ended up finding my second space on Hurst Street. 2617 Hurst Street is the address, which sits like right off the bypass, if you're familiar with the area. So yeah, that space was strategic. I was responsible for kind of outfitting the space as far as like making sure that it was up to codes and zoning, which took a long time. And during that time, COVID happened. So I had to wait to even get open. But once we opened, we were able to get filled pretty quickly and have had, pretty full enrollment since then. And yeah.
Well, I'm going to go back to your story.
Okay.
You had a vision, you had a dream, someone gave you an opportunity, and you took the opportunity, and it worked out for you. My point is this here. You still felt in your own way you had that vision. And so people out there, audience, I want you to understand. Did you hear what she said? She said, hey, I did not let anybody in the long run poo-poo on my dream and vision, because as you said, vision plan, a whole business plan, you knew how to do something. Mm-hmm. So you had that. So you had a vision. So you knew how to do a business plan because you learned that in Harrisburg High School. I like to say those things because all of us who went to urban schools, we get a bad knock sometime about our education. And we have some great, great teachers in a lot of urban schools. And we always hear about the negatives, or we always hear about sports. So when I have an opportunity to bring up something else that people learn, I like to bring that up.
Right.
So I'm glad that you learned how to do a business plan. And everybody I always talk to always want to own businesses or visions of businesses. That's one of the first things they ask you to do is a business plan. Now, you didn't have any money. You got a break. Those of you need to save money up, or you need to start to develop your credit so that they can loan you money. You cannot pay bills and say the heck with it and then think somebody gonna loan you some money, because they're not going to do it. But somebody gave you a chance. And I'm gonna ask you this question. They gave you the chance. I'm gonna ask it again, but you gave other people a chance, didn't you? You gave people jobs that might didn't get those jobs. Am I right?
Right.
See, it balances out.
Right.
But sometimes people don't know it balances out. And I do realize that I want to join the program, but you didn't want to. I know you don't like to talk about yourself because you don't. But you see, I want you to talk about yourself because see, there's people out there just like you saying, "Oh, if she's done it, then I can do it." Well, let me ask you another question. What do you? We've talked about this, and we pretty well said. You say I asked you, so you think that what makes a daycare center successful is what? If I had to ask you to tell me, what do you think makes a daycare center successful? Based on your model.
Based on my model, what makes a daycare center successful is having a genuine staff. You cannot do it alone. Like you just can't. So finding staff that buy into the vision, staff that have a heart for children, that is what makes a child care center run. I mean, you can, have all the fancy stuff that you want to, the newest toys and technology, but if you don't have a caring, committed staff to help facilitate those children, like with even using like simple things like using those things, like it doesn't work. So like staff is like the most important thing.
Okay. How do you handle, we'll use staff at first. How do you handle staff and what you do and how you do? Because you got to balance out, I'm assuming, their workload to what they do, to attendance, how many kids come in, how many kids don't, and how do you deal with that from a stressful standpoint?
From a stressful,
because it has to stress. I mean, because you're the leader, so I'm assuming most of us have had jobs out there when somebody else don't show up and you got to do it. People think bosses or people who own companies, they have this assumption that when you own it, that you ain't got to do no work.
Yeah.
So I want you to tell my audience, because you own it, don't mean you don't have to do no work. The importance of it.
Right. So as a owner, like I'm always upfront. Like I have like really great ladies that work with me and support me. Like they hold me down. I love them. As an owner, what becomes stressful is like like at the end of the day, like you got to pay the people, so you got to make sure that like the finances are where they're supposed to be. That you're taking care of what you're supposed to take care of. So that's a lot of pressure, on one person. But everything else, like, it just really comes to having a great team that's able to help you and, like I said, buy into the vision and see. And I really do have that. I have my I call her my business partner, Miss Nikki the boss, who like came on, I want to say like 2 years ago now, and she really like she came in and she just like bought into the vision, and we basically like had the same mindset of like let's do right by these kids. And so like that's just what we tried to make sure that we had an environment where they were receiving like quality care. Like it doesn't matter if we were inner city, you know what I mean? Like whatever clientele, like, mostly minority, like it doesn't matter. They're still want to receive the best that we have to offer. Miss Marcia, who has been with me for a really long time, she just has the heart of a grandmother. And she is a grandmother, but she really like she just makes sure that everybody feels loved. And so you just need people around you like that to make sure that things are running smoothly. And not to say that every day is perfect, because it's not. You deal with in childcare, you're dealing with a lot of different personalities. So you're dealing with staff personalities, and you're also dealing with children's personalities. And even though they are kids, they still come in with their issues. Like sometimes they might have a bad day and they might not be feeling you. So you got to weave through that and just, figure them out too. And sometimes you got to be like, you know what? You can go ahead and have your little moment. We'll circle back around to it, and that's okay. So just finding that balance, of dealing with staff, children, and just kind of making it all flow. Like the objective is to, to get through the day, everybody's safe, everybody learned something new, and thank God.
Okay. I mean, I was reading something where there's this big their care stuff and the staff shortages. How are you able to deal with this whole thing about staff shortage, and how have you been able to be successful at it, and how you've been able to juggle it?
So most of the staff that I have currently are staff that have been with me for a very long time. So there is a staffing shortage for sure. Previously in the past, like you could just put an ad up, or you could, kind of, hey, do you know somebody that might want to work with kids? And you would get like a bunch of people that say, yeah, I got this person, I got that person. But since COVID, with everything, like you can go anywhere and make more money than you could before. So with childcare, like the pay is not always as good as it should be. Just because like most centers are funded through like we're funded through like Childcare Works. So parents that receive subsidy funds, like they qualify through it's like an income-based program, so they qualify through that, and we get our payment that way. And so like we have to budget and make our payroll like based on like what we can afford. And a lot of centers go through that, where yes, we want to pay staff like more, but we also have to budget based on what like we're getting in. And so there's just a fine balance. So right now you just try your best to hold on to like good quality staff and treat them right. And I think that that's what we've kind of what has been like our model that's kind of helped us out along the way.
So what time do you open and what time do you close?
So we open at 6:30 and we close. Two of our locations close at 5 and one closes at 5:30.
You open up at 6?
6:30.
6:30. And of course we on the And they can, if people want to know where Sunny Days Child Development is, you have a website
Yes.
they can go on, right?
Yes.
Or they have phone numbers that they can reach. You want to tell them?
Oh, okay. So I thought he just put it up. So sunnydayscdc.com, as well as our main phone number, 717-695-3877. If you do not get a call, please leave a message or shoot us an email, sunnydayscdc@gmail.com. Sometimes we're busy. We're in the classrooms. There's a lot of times I find myself in the classroom. So we're not always right in the office sitting down all the time. During the day, we're making sure that the children are attended to.
Okay, because there might be some people out there that might want to get into the business and they might have some, and they can reach out to you.
Sure.
You can reach out because we want to also give people opportunities. I mean, that's a part of it. Now something that I want to go back to, you said earlier, I'll just use me up a hypothetical. If I just wanted to open up a daycare development, can I just go and get a storefront and put a sign up and say I want to open it? Do I have to get some certifications? Do I have to do anything? Or is it just, I can just do it?
No, you can't just do it because
Oh.
child care centers are regulated by the Department of Human Services
Okay.
through the state of Pennsylvania. So yeah, the first thing you have to do is make sure the space is able to be utilized as a child care center. So each municipality area is different. Some require sprinklers, some don't. Some require like different levels of licensing that you have to go through. So it's definitely not just that's a storefront, I'm gonna open a daycare type situation. And also, I would suggest that anybody that wants to work in childcare not do it just because it seems like a fun business to go into, but just to do it because you feel like you can make an impact in children's lives. Because it's not one of those type of situations that you want to do just for the money. And I tell my children this, like, money is important, but it'll come and go. You want to make sure that you're doing something that you love to do. And at the end of the day, like, I know that I'm working in the field that I'm supposed to be working in.
I think that's very important because I would say that educators, teachers are not paid like they should be. The position that you have is not being paid like you should have, which are very important. And we need to have educators and visionaries out like you to help develop our young people so that they can have a good shot in life.
Right.
So they can learn to read and write, so that they can feel that there's somebody. And that's why we have to always tell our young people they are somebody.
Right.
Because I hear it so often, because I think, you tell me if I'm wrong, your job, based on what you believe and what you think, is the foundation that they can grow on. Am I right or wrong?
You're right.
Because something that you said earlier, let's go back to emotional. Emotion is very important. You brought up a number of things. You talked about emotion, talked about love, and you say those things are very important because it helps develop young people. Am I right or wrong?
All right.
Why do you think that we need to understand the importance of the kinds of things that you're doing? I understand your passion, I understand your belief, and I understand your calling. But putting it in retrospect, why do you think it's important to have people like you?
So I don't want to sound cliche, but the children really are our future. So helping them build like a firm foundation and healthy understanding of who they are at a young age is important. And so that's why this work is important.
it's not a cliche. I mean, it's real.
Right.
And if it's real, and that's what we need to do. I mean, when I hear people on TV, some that, and I've had some on this program that have been incarcerated, and some of them say, well, nobody cared about me. Nobody didn't care what I did. Nobody never said, I love you. Nobody never hugged me. Or as you said, communicated with me. You know, and I realize now, and I didn't realize it early on, that that's why a lot of our young people have problems. We assume, but it's not always the correct assumption, that sometimes kids behave in school. Why? It could be they didn't get no rest. They could have, nobody told them they loved them. Nobody made them feel that they were significant in anybody's life. And so you've developed that foundation. And because you developed that foundation, I'm hoping that people out there just listening, that not necessarily the story that you own these, but the message that you give, the importance of young people overall. Because see, the message can be broad. I brought you on the program and you explained why. You explained how you got to where you got to. And at the same time, you had some subliminal messages in your presentation. I'm going to bring up a couple other things, but I don't want people to think this business is hard work. Would you agree?
I would agree.
But it could be profitable. It could be profitable. Yes or no?
Yes.
Okay. I mean, you know, I'm not saying you're being here. Hey, you see, she don't want to answer that question. But we all know if she wasn't making zero, you know, it's her passion, but she still got to pay bills, right?
Gotta pay the bills.
But no, you got to pay the bills. Something else you said, I'm going to go back to again. You said you had a very supportive staff of you. Guess what, folks? She didn't pay them. They wouldn't be there.
Right.
They would pat her on the back and say, I love you, sis, but this ain't working.
Right.
Okay, so
'Cause they gotta feed their families too.
there you go. See,
Right.
because sometimes people don't understand that you gotta be successful. You gotta make some money. And I don't want people to think that you do it. I mean, you do it for the love, but the love ain't gonna feed your kids.
Right.
And I want people to understand that. So now you done told me, so it could be profitable. It could be based on the leadership who's leading the boat, the captain of the boat. Because there could be other ones out there. That's number one. You've also talked about their certifications. So if somebody wants to have a daycare, they need to do their research. Would you say that?
Right.
They need to find out what it takes to be administrator. Like you're the CEO of Sunny Day. So it's very important for people to understand that. And the reason I'm trying to balance it out in terms of this is who you are and this is what you're about. But if, you know, not only people in Harrisburg just listen to my program, I have people listen all over. So there may be somebody in Pittsburgh or Philadelphia or someone else that's thinking about opening a daycare, development center, that making them think about it. Because I want to give people hopes and dreams. You know, did you know, why do I bring you on here? Because I want people to know that, hey, guess what? There's people out there that run daycare development centers that look like them, like you.
Right.
Because I want that little whoever's watching, male or female, who might be over their grandmoms or grandfather or the grandparents or whoever parent can say, you know what? One day you can own your own daycare or development center or whatever, or care center. But if we don't know anything about it, we won't dream and have visions of that.
Mm-hmm.
I am a believer that we need to expose our people to opportunities. Yes, they see basketball, they see football, they see baseball, they see sports on TV, and they try to relate, or they may even watch movies and they may want to be a movie star.
Mm-hmm.
So they connect to it, but everybody can't be all those things. But there's so many other things that we can be, but we need to be exposed to it.
Right.
I mean, I now have met a number of people that own businesses. Well, we need to know that people like us can own businesses. But at the same time, we got to support people like you to make you successful. So hopefully, you come on program. You said you got 3 centers. Hopefully, down the road you come on. You may say you have 6 or 8. I don't know, but we want you to grow and develop. Now, this program is about getting ready to end, so I'm going to ask you to tell my audience the things you think they should know about what we're talking about. You're honest, Frank. Just tell my audience what you think they need to know. First thing, and I'm gonna start it with this.
Okay.
First thing she said, you got to show them love. You got to show them. That was one of your main. That was one of your main things that you set out to be, and that's what you started out with. I'm gonna close with this, and then have you finish it up. Sunny days, you provide an environment of love, care, and educational development for children. So there you go. What do you think? Tell my audience.
So I think that I would like anyone to take away just how essential childcare is in the early stages of a young person's life, and I understand the importance and the significance of a parent or families sending their children to someone else and saying, hey, take care of my baby throughout the day. So we definitely we value, we find deep value in what we do and the importance of it. We just hope that everybody sees that because working in this field, it is a selfless field. Like you're doing it out of the love of your heart. Like I said, not just because oh, I get paid money, a lot of money for doing this, because that's really not the case. Because you can go to, at this point, you can go to McDonald's or, somewhere else and make $18, $19 an hour at this rate. So we're doing what we do because this is what we're called to do. And that we understand the importance and the significance and just speaking life into children, just providing them with the atmosphere where they do feel safe and they feel cared for. And we know that that's important and that's essential.
Well, I want to thank you for coming on to the program. And here we have Juanita Palmer, who is the CEO. And she's the CEO. But guess what, folks? A lot of you could be CEOs too. So have hopes and dreams. She had hopes, she had dreams, and she had vision. And she still has a vision. And I know those of you out there got vision as well. So let's keep the faith. You are somebody. We all are somebody. And we need to believe, love, and care for each other. Good evening.
Thank you for joining the Richard Utley Show on The Voice 17104. We will be here on The Voice 17104 every first and third Tuesday from 6:30 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. Once again, thanks for viewing. Remember to visit us on Facebook at Richard Utley, and we welcome your questions and or comments.